All right,
All
welcome
right.
back.
Yep, we've got a great matchup here. This is going to be Magnetonics versus Argon. So, for those of you who started watching day one, Argon was on the very first stream and kind of got 360 windmill slammed by Genesec's team, who, kind of gave a little bit of a feint there, showed stall, actually brought some hard hitting Tems and did a lot of damage and knocked Argon down to the lower bracket. Argon has pretty much been throwing hands since then. He is 2-0'd everybody he's played in lower bracket. He is actually tied with Magnetonics for the lowest game losses of any player, which is crazy because he's played more matches than anyone except for, I believe, Lulu, who is in grand finals. Lulu's the only player who's lost fewer individual games and has played the same amount. So despite this being a lower bracket run, Argon is actually doing quite well in this tournament. This is like a as comfortable and as dominant of a lower bracket run as we've seen so far. He's going up against Magnetonics now in this game.
So, taking a look at the team comps that we have here. Earlier, we were casting creativity versus creativity, which was Lulu versus Magnetonics. Now we kind of switched the game up a little bit, and we're doing creativity versus textbook. Argon, I would say, has a textbook balanced team when you see things like the Double Bird, the Oshiara, the Volfi able to exist in a lot of different teams with everybody except for Magnetonics, because Magnetonics has the three melees that exist with Psypat, Brock Goblin, and the Tutsu here. But there's also the hard-hitting Momo that exists as well, with no mentals on Magnetonic's side. So Momo might be a safe ban, maybe for second pick. It's going to be an interesting game regardless. The Gazuma on Argon's side looks like it's a support Gazuma with the Diabolo, maybe a Spark setup. This is going to be a very interesting game with number 2 America, number 4 America in a North American fight here.
Yeah, this is going to be very, very interesting. So, like we said yesterday, Argon had a really hard time dealing with Genesect playing this like bulky, hard-hitting offensive team, and you would think that, that means that he'll have a really hard time with Magnetonics, who actually like outbulked Genesect in their matchup. But it's a little bit different. While Magnetonics has a very bulky team, he actually lacks a lot of upfront turn 1 damage. Tems like good friend Scarabolt, Broccolem, Tuveen, Tatsu, Saku, these Tems don't have that many ways to deal a ton of upfront damage. So Argon actually has opportunities here as we see the draft coming out, Scarabolt and 2 Tulkins, banned on both sides. Argon has a few early turns to work with to kind of get the ball rolling, and every time Argon scores a KO, Magnetonics kind of has to restart his progress to dealing damage. So if Argon can keep things going and keep scoring important KOs, which will be difficult, make no mistake, Magnetonics' team is very bulky, he can, much like Lulutror did, sort of make enough plays to extend his run through the games here.
Yeah, like you were mentioning, the only similarities that Argon and Lulu have is that they're very aggro-oriented. The Volfi pick here is going to be pushing off the turn 1 Dario pick for Magnetonics, which means that it's going to be forcing Magnetonics not really into a corner, but it's also focusing on a couple of Tems that can be chosen here. The Dario has to be out. The Saku could be an okay pick, but we may actually just see the double tag team here. We do not with the Brock Golem and the 2 Vine. Very safe pick. The Momo is also a very safe pick in return with the no mentals.
Yeah, it can be a little bit difficult to give Magnetonics that turn 1 tempo by not picking Momo, who of course only has double edge as an option early on here. This is a bit of a tricky spot for Argon, is that Tuveen and Broccolem actually cover each other very well in terms of one covering the other's weakness. So we do see Argon go for that early Momo instead. He's probably not going to swap it out turn 1. The plan is, I think, more or less to try and break down the bird if possible, but he is giving Mag an opportunity to really kind of swing with the Broccolem here.
That felt like a really decent Hazrat pick personally, but the Momo getting its holds up as quickly as possible to be able to swap back and forth between Undermine and Knockback could be a huge problem for Magnetonics. You want to get those holds up off of Momo as quickly as possible. And like you mentioned, there is a couple of turns of breathing space for Argon before Magnetonics' holds come up.
Yeah, something we talked about a little bit. Sorry, that was talked about a little bit in the Argon versus Genesect game is, weirdly enough, Argon's team is really Broccolum weak. Like, he doesn't have a lot of good swap-ins for melee attacks, and Broccolum is a special wall, and a lot of Argon's attackers are special attackers. So in a weird way, like, I mean, that's a pretty good meta read. Like, people aren't going to bring Broccolum to, like, the biggest prize pool tournament in Temtem history, but then, what do you know, he's playing 2 players that are playing this Tem, so bit unlucky for him there. Let's see if he's able to kind of figure out how to sort of get around that as we continue the draft here.
Banning the Tulkin allowed for the Broccolum to come in here, not necessarily safe, but it allowed for the push off of the Fiery Soul. Even if the Hazrat was picked turn 1, the camouflage still does exist for the dodge for Broccolum to have on the following turn. Gario seems like a pretty good choice here.
Yeah, both players know their gears here, so interestingly, like, swapping in Hazrat or something like that could be an option if the Volphy can trap. It can trap the Tuvine. It has bait, which means it can be handcuff trapped. As we do see, Argon is completely out of reserve time, and Magnetonics gets some time to sort of mull this over. Basically, he's deciding whether or not he's attacking the Volphy turn 1 or not hard enough that, and like whether or not Argon will swap. Because if the Volphy stays in and takes a melee move, Gario becomes very, very threatening. We do see him pick the Gary, so would not surprise me to see him do that. All right, let's get into game number 1. Argon versus Magnetonics here.
Volphy, Momo, Tuvine, and Broccolum.
Right away, we look at a very difficult choice from Magnetonics on turn 1. As it often is against these aggressive teams, you sort of like have to pick a side. Like, if I target the Volphy, what does Argon do? Does he bring in something that is a little bit better defensively against it and, you know, keep the Volphy so he can check my Gario? In that case, I should target the Momo instead. Can I afford to let Momo set up for free? Like, that's something that is, like, top of mind for Magnetonics as well. Like, should I be trying to run down this Momo instead? It's a pretty free, like, Soul Shout Feather Gatling on either slot. Like, there's really not too much Argon can bring in to deal with that. We do see the Volphy leave, and here comes Yoshiara. Let's see what happens here.
Here comes the 50-50. What side the Feather Gatling comes down onto the Momo. That is a very smart choice. And it doubles down with the Soul Shout onto it. The Nut Bar heals on both attacks. The Double Edge does swing onto the Tuvine for the 42% damage. Hard hit. Holds come up on the Momo. Oshiara also has the holds completely opened up here. But there's a Brock Oblin in the way.
Depending on the spreads, depending on what Magnetonics' TV spread is on that Tuvine, that Double Edge could actually be very impactful. Basically, the larger the gap between your HP pool and your special defense pool, the more valuable it is to receive a special defense buff. So, Tuvine getting that, if Magnetonics is a very high HP Tuvine, as opposed to one that's more balanced, that Argon could be led a little bit astray by what happens if he decides to double the purple bird. He may not even want to. Like, the Momo doesn't seem at all safe from dying to, like, Turbine plus a melee move from Broccolum. But again, Argon just has no way of swapping out of Broccolum's melee moves, so he kind of has to make a choice and deal with it. Position his Hazrat to the point where it can threaten it. Everybody stays in. Surbrath coming out. How much does this bird take? Oh, that's pretty high. He should be able to finish that off. It's gonna go
Even
first and hit
plus
the Os, though.
40% damage into it, too. Here comes the Undermine into the Broccolum.
Smart play by Argon here. This is gonna reduce the Broccolum special attack And that probably means that OCR is going to live this attack. Just barely, it's a game of inches.
The 1.3%. It is trapped in, but it does live the double there due to that undermine from Momo. If that undermine did not hit the Brocklum, that Oshiara is gone.
It is trapped in, so it will likely go down here, as it seems unlikely that Oshiara will be able to KO Tubing with Tsunami, but it is possible.
The +2 special attack from Osh, though, that last turn, may give it that edge to overpower the Tubing. It does get one more move before it goes down.
Yeah, for sure. It's unlikely Magnetonics can outspeed this thing with a flag from Brocklum. So we'll see.
One final breath from the horse.
Gotta think that Magnetonics was not expecting Argon to split attacks there. It was a very smart play from him.
It's a flood. It's a determined
interesting.
Gonna make it so that this Brocklum does not go first, though. Does not get to see an attack. A little bit of return.
Yeah, interesting call there.
And he picks up the horse.
Yeah, that flood wasn't super impactful there. I think that's a little bit of a strange play from Argon. He kind of like damages his own Momo by using knockback there. And the flood doesn't really give him much value now because Tubing, of course, resisted it. So trading Oshiara for Brocklum, however, is a pretty, I would say, a fairly advantageous trade for Argon. So he's probably happy to take that. Bulky's coming back in, and hopefully there's something that can be done here to deal with the Momo. It might not go down to Turbine. It's possible that it does. It's going to be close. Nutbar kind of messes with my memory for how much damage moves did, so I'm pretty sure the Momo took over 30% from Feather Gatling, and then healed back above that with Nutbar. And if that's the case, then of course Argon is, super inclined to leave for the Gazuma here, because it's a pretty good Gazuma board. Of course, Magnetonics could predict that and try to go for a CPG, but we'll have to see. The Momo might just be checked by the Psypad. This Psypad is Schweenshorn, so there's no good swap-ins to Noxus Bomb anymore, and the Psypad likely has speed advantage on the Momo.
Yeah, and then the Psypad would be able to follow up with a Nicho Psy onto the Volphy and do major damage to it too. The Psypad is in a pretty decent position, however, Volphy is handcuffed, and the Plague will most likely outspeed any 2 cryo that Psypad has here on this turn.
Magnetonics may also just kind of see the low stamina on the Momo and double the Volphy here. That's also definitely a possibility. If the double brings Volphy low enough that it can't actually threaten Gario anymore, then all of a sudden Argon can be in big trouble, as Hazrat has a really hard time doing anything with Gario functional on the board. But there is a lot of reserve time sort of being lost here. Someone is thinking about this move a lot. And Mag swaps. Decent Saku board, here it comes.
Oh, and it's a bark into the Psypad, lowering the defenses.
And he tries to bring it down.
Oh, he tried to one-shot it. Nox Bomb coming down. Where does he want to swing this? He's just going to take out the Momo here. All of a sudden, this feels like a Hazrat board.
Yes and no. There is a wind move up and available, so Gazu comes out instead, yeah. I would think if you're Argon, you've got to get out on the Volphy now, because if you're outsped by Nicho Sai, the game is probably just over. Yeah. Because there's like a threat of... But Magnetonics can cover that by going for Turbine. It is a bit of a tricky spot for Argon in that he's got to figure out a way to get enough damage out of this Gazu for him to win the game. And at +1 SPDF, the Tubing can likely live in Electric Storm unless the Gazu buffs itself. I wonder if he might try to do that. It's a very tough situation for him if he's outsped. Which could be
pinned down pretty hard.
Which could mean that Argon might try to nimble the Volphy, maybe, if he has it. No, he's gonna leave.
Swap.
Yeah, Hazrat's here.
Pinned down spot. It's hard. There's the Nicho. Swinging on the Gazuma instead. Okay. Well, we see a split. If we attach on to the side path, it's going to take that out. Frond Whip, Saku, perhaps? There's going to be a Frond Whip onto the Gazuma. It is a double up, and it does take out the Gazuma. That's going to force in the Volphy and Hazrat versus the World. I don't think Eugario here.
This is weirdly so smart from Magnetonics. I wonder if he did this on purpose. No, wait, never mind.
Eugario comes in. It does have autonomy, so that it can dodge this first plague from the Volphy. And he might just want to just double this Volphy here, because this Gario 1v1 on Hazrat would be a dream for Magnetonics.
I think it's actually going the other way, B-flat. I think the play for Magnetonics is just to try to eradicate the Hazrat, because there's absolutely no way Volphy can fight Saku. Right? So if he goes the other way, he's going to try and bring the Saku down instead. Yeah, this is smart. Try to do as much as you can to the Saku here. And Mag, throw in the boomerang.
Hazrat.
And there's the Soil Steam. So Argon is down to 110.
Yeah.
Hazrat bites the dust.
Gario still has one turn of evade, and it also has a Saku in front of it.
Oh. Crucially, Argon is not. Yeah, there's the concede.
Yeah. No
Argon's not Toxic Farewell on his Hazrat, so he didn't get the ticks that he needed to put the Gario in range, which means that he was absolutely going to eat probably 2 cold geysers there, which of course makes it untenable. What a game number 1, B-Fly. It kind of looked like a replay of that game we saw on day 1.
Yeah. Like you were mentioning, the Hazrat does get known by Magnetonics in game number 1. That could be crucial information for game number 2 if this Hazrat is left alone again. But yeah, it did seem like Argon versus Genesect day number 1, where the bulk kind of existed. Naturally so, a lot of the bulk of Magnetonics was just able to stay sturdy. The Brock Golem, the Saku was able to just take those doubles and was able to swing back just as hard. The Tuveen also being able to take a double, getting that double-edged stat buff and still being able to exist.
Bit of a curious flood, that game. From Argon.
Yeah, that flood was interesting. I think it was just to eliminate the plague, and that was it.
Yeah, wanted to make sure that he couldn't outspeed Momo with Plague, and then get 2 hits instead of 1, which I guess makes sense. But it did kind of seem like the Momo opener there was also not maybe to Argon's liking. This is so fascinating. We're getting into the draft for game number 2. Loser chooses side. Argon has chosen orange side, which is very rare for people to do. After a loss, so the Magnetonics right away says, no thank you, I'm not a Tulkin fan. Only 1 purple bird remains for Argon here. And then the Brock Golem this time. That's not something you normally expect to see banned.
Especially
but there it goes.
Weirdly enough, we never got to see the Tetsu in Game 1 for Magnetonics. I know how much Magnetonics likes the tag team just to be there and keep the ball going. Didn't even need it.
Yeah, this is a fairly different opener. Like without the Bracolum, things like Volphy are a little bit safer to play. But it is still very tough for Argon to position. With the Tulkin banned out, like Hazrat is a possibility, but one of the things that Argon's team is lacking compared to, I think, like some of the other teams, like Lulu's team, for example, an aggressive team that's gone quite a bit farther, is he doesn't have that like mimic, that ability to like double up on something that's really good here. Instead, he's playing, I guess you would say, a more like traditional speed control aggressive team, and that's sort of can make it a little bit difficult. If you're playing speed control and your opponent doesn't care about going second, it can be really hard to win the game. that's what we saw against Genesect, and that's what we might see here, as we see Argon opening up the back half of his draft. He's out of reserve time, B-flat.
Yeah, just like game number 1, he is spending all of his time on pick and ban. I mean, it's there for a reason, and reasonably so, because this is such a vital match and such a crucial match to do or die, basically. The 40 seconds is there for a reason. The minute and a half reserve time in game is there for a reason. Always highly suggest using up as much as possible, looking at your boards, your battle logs, and everything. But you only have that once.
Oh, double bird time. We don't normally see this, but I like it from Mag. It sort of messes up Argon's plan to just go for like a quick double into tubing and maybe take it out. Also, if this thing is running Humiliating Slap, it really opens up like H-Slap Nox Bomb might just be enough to bring down the Osiara turn 1, and then like the Rat is sitting in front of a couple of really hard-hitting wind moves and doesn't have that many options. Argon is super pressured to swap turn 1 here, right? Because double wind move will absolutely destroy his Rat. So this opens up options for Magnetonics if he is playing the Humiliating Slap. And we have seen Haito, Uchi, Feather Gatling, and Show Off from that Tatsu so far. Actually, I think we've seen Nox Bomb. So in that case, I don't think he's playing Humiliating Slap. So if Argon's been, paying attention to the tournament, watching the games, he would probably know that. But a bit tricky here as we see double nature coming in from Argon, maybe going to scare away the Gario here.
The Volfi is pretty decent here. We do know that the Momo bark into Plague on the side pad was not enough for a kill. The Momo does get banned here, so we won't see that bark, which begs the question about like how much is this side pad going to be bulky, and how much is that Plague going to do now that -2 defense is not going to be existing anymore.
Yeah, as we get started with game number 2, an observation that I'll make here just by pressing X real quick. I think Argon is relieved that Magnetonics chose not to ban Volfi second phase here, because if you look at the back, Volfi has an incredibly good matchup against all 3 of Magnetonics back Tems, unless he's undersped by the Saipat Nicho, so that's something he's going to have to be cognizant of. But he has a much better Tem at dealing with Saipat now because he has Kinu. So I think Argon's back half of the draft is going much better for him as we see Lava Wave opening up into the big purple bird.
37% there. The tag team is coming in clutch there to reduce some of that damage. Big Tsunami pushes it over the 50% range. Nox Bomb is coming down into the horse. Does a little bit more than half there. And it is a double Nox Bomb that might just be a horse pickup here. It's just enough.
Wow. That's one way to do it. I mean, it's a double puke bomb onto Osiara turn 1. These Tems double as toxics, I guess. And like we said, bringing that, I mean, I anticipated maybe H-Slap Nox Bomb, but this is also super strong, of course, if you're not running H-Slap. And now the Gazu comes in.
Maybe the thought process was that Rat was swapping out, seeing 2 birds in front of it.
Also, Argon just goes for the Gazuma here. This is really interesting. So he has no defensive swaps against wind moves anymore. He can't, he can't threaten a 1/4 resist swap in from the Gazu in the back because it's just chilling here on the board, which means that like Turbine or like Feather Gatling Turbine is just guaranteed damage into anything on Argon's board unless he can get ahead of it somehow. I think Argon is
targets this Kazuma slot. He has to.
I don't think so. I think he's got the wind move threat on Hazrat. It is possible he switches targets anticipating a swap, but Argon's 2 most important Tems to win this game are Volfi and Kinu. If he really doesn't want to show those Tems because they're so good against Hazrat, Saipat, and Scaravolt. So he's got to be really careful that he's preserving his Volfi in particular. He needs it for the earth damage to deal with the 2 fires. And the nature moves, of course, to deal with the Saipat. But Mag is up a ton of assets right now, so Argon is super threatened if he swaps out here.
It is
Instead,
contagious.
it's going to be Mag who swaps out instead.
Scara.
Yeah, I like this.
It's a very nice play there. Lava Wave is coming down. Thought the bird was going to be there. Instead, it's half damage onto the beetle. And it's a Tesla onto it too. This Tatsu is wide open to hit something for free here. What is it going to be? It is on the Hazoret. Good damage into the Hazoret there.
Yeah, love that play from Magnetonics there. What we saw, I think, really clearly in the Lulu versus Yurem set is that whenever there's an Earth on the board, Scaravolt is just totally useless, right? And so get the Scaravolt in early, make Argon bring the Volphy in as part of something that can just deal a ton of damage to it. Like, at this point, Mag is totally happy to stay in on both slots, and he will do exactly that. Argon is going to throw Hazrat, Wastewater. The good friend Scara, the mechanics diff. Argon maybe forgetting there. Haito Uchi, he's chipping the Gazu.
Was not faster there. That's key to point out and have for knowledge later on, if that ever is needed later.
I like that.
In clutch for sure.
I like that the Haito came down there, but now this is so tough because Fire Tornado was up for Scaravolt, and Argon has Sludge Gift, but is Sludge Gift going to be enough to KO a good friend Scaravolt from 69%? It's close. I think it might actually be possible. Sparks will do it.
Sparks, Sludge Gift. But what is the speed tiers on both of these? Because that's the 3 prio on both sides.
Yeah, but I think that's really threatening. If I'm Mag, I think you've got to get Psypat in for Tatsu, like right now. You've got to get
Hold up.
Nicho Sai up and available. If not, this Volphy, if Argon starts sparking the Volphy, it can get out of control in a hurry. Because it's probably faster than Tuveen, it's probably faster than Hazrat, it's probably faster than Scaravolt, it's probably faster than Tatsu. So if it starts getting incremental boosts, it can be super hard because it will secure kills as it's getting incremental boosts, not to mention that the Vigorize is going to make it so this train never runs out of gas. So Mag has actually got to make some pretty quick decisions here about whether he's able to pressure this Volphy out or not.
Even Sludge Gift alone is a 9 stamina cost move. If you reduce that even further, you're going to be gaining more than Volphy's going to be losing. This is the board that Argon was looking for pretty much most of this game. Killing off the Hazoret got the safe swap in to this Volphy here.
So there's the duck.
Is in. Double swap.
Ooh, he's saving the Scarable. That's super interesting. Maybe trying to save that Fire Tornado for Kinu. There's the Sludge Gift and the T-Prison, so not a Sparks. So Sludge Gift is in play. Does he go back to Scarable here, I wonder? Or maybe just Tatsu?
Yeah, because maybe you're pinning down this Volphy slot. If Argon knows that Nito is up, you swap into the Kinu to resist, but then you can just double down on that Volphy slot.
I actually like this play a lot. So here's Tatsu. Kazuma gonna Diabolo the Volphy. It wasn't really missing much health, so that's not a big deal. But so now, what Magnetonics is representing by putting this Tatsu on the board is he can Nicho Gazuma now if he wants to. Right? He's under no obligation to Nicho Volphy here. So Argon actually has to take some time and consider which side to bring the Kino on, and Argon doesn't have much time. He's only got 7 seconds of reserve left. So he's got to make a decision very, very quickly, and this is where mistakes can happen. Volphy's out for Kinu. Does Mag go the other way? Nicho Sai.
There's the Sai coming. It
is on the Gazu. What a play.
It is enough to take it out to Shinobi Tactics, pushing that over. Is this going to be a Nox Bomb from Tatsu? It is a Nox Bomb that's going to be major covered. Damage on Kinu. Good drop.
Oh, no, it's Arvile.
It's reactive Vile to make it push back over the 50%.
That's so bad for Argon because now it gives Magnetonics the opportunity to deal neutral damage to it with Ninja Jutsu if he wants to. I don't know if he can afford to do that. This is actually still very far from over. Argon has a lot of damage into Magnetonics. Like, he's got Earth moves for Hazrat and Nature moves for Saipad and Tatsu. So he's definitely not out of this game yet, but he has to make decisions so quickly that Magnetonics just has to get one of these Tems down. Volvi can't do it all itself. It's probably not running Sandstorm. So there's the Plague.
A little more than half damage there.
Did Mag go for Nox Bomb? He did go for Nox Bomb, so this is even more damage into Kinu here. No, he targets Volvi instead. Kinu goes for Hypno. Wrong side, Argon, all the time. The high tail, that's gonna finish Volvi. Oh,
that's enough.
Damn.
That's gotta be enough.
Man, Mag was cooking today. What a game.
And all of a sudden, just like that, that's it.
GG's come out. That's gonna be it for the last of the clowns. Give it up for Mag, though. I mean, that was exactly the way you want to play it against an aggressive player, and I think he did the right things to secure his victory there. Great run for Argon through lower bracket. I mean, to lose day one, game one, and then come back to make top 6, I think is a super big accomplishment. I know Prody did that as well. So, like, you know, shout outs to both of those players. But what were your thoughts kind of on the end of the match there, B-Flat?
So right away, Magnetonics had to take that Tulkin off the board every single time, no matter what, because that plays into so many of his Tems that getting that Tulkin removed is what was necessary. Being able to play into the not really defensive Tems of Argon and being able to take doubles with no problems whatsoever was the deciding factor. Magnetonics could take doubles all day. Tag team just reduces that even further, as we saw in Game 3, and he was able to punch back just as hard after taking those doubles and being able to pick his slots, pinning down slots as well, as we saw with the Volvi swap, and then being able to just niche aside the Kazuma pretty much for free. And then the free Nox Bomb was able to hit that Kinu as well. Pinning down those slots is what Magnetonics has been doing all tournament, and that's been continuing and working in his favor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that the clowns will do, the Cuddly Clowns, by the way, for those of you who are watching, is a club in Temtem. A bunch of people are all teammates on that club. I think when they kind of dissect how some of these runs went and they look at Argon's run, I think they have to consider themselves maybe a little bit unlucky to some extent. Like, Argon's team is very well positioned to fight teams like Yurem's, like Platts, like Lulu's. This is absolutely a team that will do very well into a lot of those teams. Instead, he got Broccolum twice, right? Like, that's a bad day at the matchup casino. You know, like, that's just a tough one. That's a tough one to deal with. But we're going to go ahead and say goodbye for now. When we see you guys again, it'll be the first game of, I believe, first game of Grand Finals.
Should be Grand Finals.
We're back next. So we'll be back for that. In the meantime, we're going to throw this over to Jay and Gag Bomb. Take it away, boys.
Well, Jay, that was one of the games of all time.
It was a game. I know exactly what you mean.
So what happened there? What are we looking at in this matchup here? We saw again, I gotta feel like it was a speedy invested team that's looking for speed control with, you know, Flood and that OCR going into a team that does not care about speed at all, doesn't invest into it, I would imagine, at all. And just getting outstatted and getting in a position where you're behind and forced to make, suboptimal plays or reads, and just getting pressured out.
And speaking of Flood, in game 1, that Flood from Argon, it felt like it was probably the losing point of that game, honestly, because as we saw, the 2-vine was determined and it was pretty low. OCR was +2 special attack. It's almost certain that a Water Blade would have killed it, and Momo probably outspeeds the Broccolim's 3 bio at base even. So he would have still had OCR alive and then would have had an extra asset over Magnetonics, which would have meant then maybe that game would have turned out differently.
Yeah, definitely. I think just a few small errors like that are enough to, really catapult your opponent into a favorable position, and you find yourself on the back foot. And I think that's just what happened to Argon.
It was also pretty interesting, right? Because looking at it in game 2, we saw that I believe Argon picked to be on the orange side, which for an aggro team seems like a pretty bold decision to make.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the matchup, some matchups I do favor orange side a little bit more, just for that that counter ban specifically. But yeah, I mean, it felt like, I mean, as we saw that OCR just wasn't able to do enough damage turn 1 and just got 2-shot. So, I mean, getting outstatted, outtraded, it really backfired for Argon here. These frailer Tems that cannot deal enough damage to these bulkier Tems.
It really felt like from the lead, he just was behind, and then Magnetonics was just able to convert it. Pretty standard.
Yeah.
Also, the Kinu being Benefactor was interesting. I think if it was Protector, Kazuma might have lived that Nicho Sai.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I'm not 100% sure how much that changes, but would they have gotten another T-Prison off?
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, in either case, that was, it was a good match, and congrats to Magnetonics for continuing on in the bracket.
We're going to see who advances between Magnetonics and Senior Plat to fight Urem in the losers finals after the short break.
See you then.